Welcome to Verses and Visions Creative Conversations, where creativity and purpose meet to inspire and uplift. I'm Cassidy Beck, your host, here to explore the stories of artists, dreamers, and changemakers who are walking in faith and using their unique gifts to make a difference. Each episode is a reminder that your vision, paired with God's purpose, can transform the world around you. Let's get started and spark some inspiration together. Hey friends, before we jump into today's conversation, I've been thinking about those small, meaningful things that bring us together. For me, that's often sharing a bottle from my family's premium soda company, Soda Beers. Whether it's crisp ginger beer, smooth butterscotch beer, classic root beer, original apple beer, or apple beer 5, our low-calorie twist, each flavor is a small little reminder of home and of the simple joys. Okay, now let's dive in. I am honored to be speaking with Nnamdi Okonkwo. Nnamdi was born in eastern Nigeria. By the time he was 17, he knew two things. He was artistic and he was tall. He was recruited by BYU Hawaii to play on the basketball team, where he found his opportunity to nourish all of his talents, especially sculpting. He graduated with a BFA in sculpture and went on to receive his MFA in sculpture from BYU Provo. There he met and married his wife, Deidre Young. They have been blessed with 3 children and have now made their home and studio in Fayetteville, Georgia. Nnamdi, again, thank you. I know you're very busy. I so appreciate your time and your generosity in coming to talk with me today.
Oh, no. It's my pleasure. Part of the reason that I do what I do is you recognize that you've been given a talent, and you recognize that when God gives someone a talent, he intends for the person to use the talent to bless others. And I can sense that what you're doing is a blessing to a whole lot of people. So if I can add to it in a little way, I'm thrilled. Thanks for inviting me. I'm hoping that I'm going to have something to say that is going to be of help to even just one person. You know, I'm not greedy. Just one person.
That's my hope too. I feel like I have changed my measure of success, and it is to just try and find the one. Yes. And I think that's a little bit hard to do because you don't always know when you've reached the one, right?
You never know. You never know. There's a story I like to tell. God works, they say God doesn't come down to work with us in person. He uses individuals. The first week that I was in a school that my mother helped push me to go to study art, I ran into this guy. And he's the guy that changed my life. And there were about 6 of us. I'm still friends with the 5 of them. I will often call some of them and say, hey, do you remember the day we went to this guy's studio and talked to him and he told us all this stuff? None of my friends have any recollection of that meeting with him. And yet, without us meeting that guy that day, without him saying the things he said to us, I will not be here today. Yeah, that's why I keep on saying, if it is only one person that I truly inspire, then I'm happy because I was in the midst of people and one person reached me. And so it's really true. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like in any endeavor, I am hoping to just reach the one. So I'm curious, your journey began in Nigeria and led you to BYU Hawaii for both basketball and art. Can you tell us about that transition from Nigeria to Hawaii, what that was like for you both personally and artistically?
Yeah, man, I loved coming to America. When I got to Hawaii, I felt like I died and I went to heaven. I knew that I was an artist, but I also knew back in Nigeria, the art that I did mostly was drawing and painting, but I knew that it wasn't really what I was supposed to do. Anything I put my hands into has to be something that calms the very depths of my soul. I knew that painting wasn't that, even though I was good at it. But when I got to Hawaii, I found sculpture. And it only took one class to know that was what I was supposed to do. Basketball was the avenue through which I came to America. Without being tall, without playing basketball, I wouldn't be here now doing what I truly love to do, which is be an artist.
So at the beginning, you did art to appease your mother. Was it that first sculpture class where you're like, okay, but now this is for me? Or when was it like that transition took place for you?
I've always respected my mother because I don't know, certain things by intuition. Perhaps it was because of some of the things that he told me. For me, she was even a prophet when I was growing up. She was very religious. And when she said that something was going to happen, that thing usually happened. And I saw how devout she was, not just with her words, but in her actions. So even as a child, even though I was rebellious, I tended to listen to her and do what she asked me to do. When she was trying to get me to be an artist, I didn't really know what I was going to do with fine art back in Nigeria. That was very unique of her because the typical Nigerian mother would want to have their son be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Most women's identity is intertwined with what especially their first son does. But instead of wanting me to be a doctor or a lawyer, she insisted that I should become an artist. And I loved art. I had some experiences when I was a child that pushed me away from art. Even though I loved art, I never knew that I was good at it. I never really believed because it was easy for me to look around and see people that were already, in my eyes, great. And I knew that I wasn't great. But I have always believed that I would be great in something, even when there wasn't any tangible thing that I can hold on to. There wasn't any signs available. But, and perhaps now looking back, I think it was the Spirit of God was in that spark of divinity that convinced me there is some greatness in every child of God. And I believe that I was a child of God. This was way before I became a member of the church. I knew that I was a child of God, and I believed that I was here to do great things. Anyway, but there wasn't any outward expression or manifestation of that. There wasn't even an inkling. I couldn't tell what I'm telling you then to anyone because I knew they would laugh at me. But my mother had so much belief and confidence in me that eventually, because of her prodding, and because every other door in my life seems to be closing, I decided that I'm going to do what she's been suggesting that I do. Immediately, I made that move. I knew it wasn't for her anymore, that it was for me, because it didn't take me more than a week into this new journey to realize that I was supposed to be an artist. Back then, I didn't really know exactly what I would do with it. I didn't know I was going to come to America, even though I hoped with every fiber of my being that I will make it to America. But I knew that God put me here and intended to do something in the field of art with me.
So much good stuff. A question that I had, you talked about as you were stepping into becoming an artist that you're looking at other people's art and that there's a little bit of self-doubt that might be coming in.
Yeah.
I like to talk about that self-doubt and fear. Can you tell me about a time that you're in your studio that you've been able to push through that self-doubt and that imposter syndrome and fear that you felt?
That's funny you say that. I don't know if I can talk about that without getting emotional because I still deal with that. For the past 70 years, let me give you a little brief history. When I had an experience, the first class that I took at BYU, Hawaii, I was leaving the class and then suddenly I felt like I heard a voice. It wasn't an audible voice. I felt like the voice was saying to me, Nnamdi. And if I had seen someone and they were screaming at me, the words wouldn't have been any clearer. I felt like the voice was saying, Nnamdi, you have found it. This is what you are supposed to do. This is what I put you here on this earth to do. And then I heard the voice and he said something further. In addition, he said, you can do anything you put your mind to doing, but it's going to take time. And I was like, wow, you can imagine the feelings of excitement and joy and exhilaration. I felt like finally I found what I was supposed to do. The years passed. I graduated because of that encouragement. As I went through the years at BYU, almost everyone tried to talk me out of being an artist. The parents of my friends who visit from the mainland, once they found out that I was from Africa and I'm deciding to be an artist, they did their very best. But I'll go back to the dorms and I get into my room and I pray to the Lord and I'll say, if this isn't what I was supposed to do, let me know. and I will change. Every single time I felt the voice was saying, no, this is what I put you here to do. That started manifesting in my work. There were people that I felt were placed to encourage me along the path also. And the way that my skill as an artist grew was surprising to me. Here, I went from nothing to suddenly something. It didn't matter what it was that I was doing in the studio. I would recognize that it was hard to do, but then in a split second, maybe when I'm about to throw in the towel, suddenly whatever I was trying to do will be resolved. So I knew earlier on that it wasn't by my power that I was doing what I was doing, that it was some other force that was acting on me and creating through me. I had so many experiences to emphasize that point to me. I had so much confidence because of this. Anyway, the reason that I told you this was about 7 years ago. About 7 years ago, suddenly I felt like I ran into this brick wall. I had always felt that I was working with a power that was divine, truly divine. And suddenly, about 7 years ago, I felt like that power was taken away from me. And it didn't matter what I was doing. Nothing was happening. And I did everything that I knew to do. I'm a religious person. I prayed and I went to the temple and I tried to serve. I did everything and nothing was happening. And it's so good that I'm able to tell it. One of the reasons that I feel good telling it to you now is that I feel like it's been in the past. I learned so much. It was one of the most horrifying experiences that I've had. And it wasn't just for 1 year. It wasn't for 2 years. It wasn't for 3 years. It wasn't even for 5 years. It was for about 7 years. Nobody could understand what I was going through because when they came to my studio and saw my work, they're like, oh man, you're doing great. No, this one is done. And I'm looking at it and I know there was something that I was supposed to put into the sculpture that wasn't yet there. And it used to be in the past. I will keep working with it and suddenly it will resolve, but it wasn't happening anymore. I'm happy that it's in the past and I've learned my lessons. We can get into when the time comes, maybe some of the lessons that I've learned. Yeah.
Let's get into it. The time has come. Tell me some of the lessons you've learned.
I really think that the Lord wanted. I've always known that just like any other person, I'm a man with certain weaknesses, spiritual sicknesses that I even identified before I became a member of the church. I knew they were like my Achilles heel. One of them is pride, amongst a whole lot of things, which is a good thing because if you're not proud, I don't think you can be a good artist. But pride can also become your undoing. I felt like the Lord will not do something for you that you're going to take credit for. See what I mean? As much as he wants to help us, I don't think he will do something for Nnamdi if Nnamdi is going to take credit for that thing. And it's not even verbal credit. If I feel in my heart that this is because of my genius, this is because of my cleverness, and I feel that if that feeling also makes me consider others as less or look down on anyone, I don't think the Lord is going to continue to work with me. So I knew that was something that I need to overcome, and I did my very best. But it wasn't until these last 70 years that I truly learned that whatever gift I have, whatever talent I have is from God, because it was so obvious to me that I had it once, that it was removed from me. And I knew that it was God that took it away from me. I knew that he took it away from me just so that I would know more than I've ever known before. Because I knew before that it was him all along. But I didn't really know the way he wanted me to know. And by experience, I came to know that this gift is from him, that it's not from me. So that's one lesson that I learned. And I learned that the Lord is also more interested in the man, the person that I am becoming than in whatever I am doing in my art. Even though he's willing to bless me through my art, he's much more interested in who I am becoming. And just because of his nature, he is not going to continue to give to me if I don't qualify for the gift. And I also learned that I will never, ever on my own qualify for the gift, because we all always will sin and fall short of the glory of God. It is by his grace. But I learned that even though I will never be perfectly obedient, but I can be perfectly desirous to be obedient. And it wasn't until this past 70 years that I understood, or I began to understand what he meant to truly desire righteousness. And I think it was because I experienced the bitter. I experienced this agony so much that I was ready to give up anything, because this is what I want to do more than anything else. Realize that if I can do it, it has to come from God. And then here I'm realizing that God cannot do it for me unless I become a better person. And then I'm realizing that I couldn't become a better person because I've been trying to be a better person. So, but then I realized that I have to grow in my desire. I have to do the best I can to be better. And as I'm trying my very best to be better at serving him, that's hopefully when he's going to say, okay, Nnamdi, I think you're ready for you and I to go to work.
It's so beautiful. I feel like this leads perfectly to my next question. You talk about who you are becoming, and I am curious about your path. You lost your father at a very young age.
Yeah.
And right after you went to BYU, you lost your brother. Those are tragedies that I know about. I know that there are other things that have happened in your life, like you've overcome very difficult things. And yet, your being and your art is just a celebration and joy. It's a celebration of, it seems like, relationships and connections between two people. Help me know how you've come through such difficult things and find joy.
Again, it's nothing that I can take credit of, because I woke up one day and saw myself the way that I didn't create myself. I think God blessed me with a cheerful spirit. And I love people. A lot of people will ask me in this day and age that there's political correctness and there's people speaking of prejudice and racism. What's been my experience? And I've always felt like, because I listen to my friends, I know the experiences are real, but those experiences are so different from mine, because I've always felt that I don't experience those things. And that is because of the kind of personality that I have. I think when I meet people, who I am speaks much louder than what they can see with their eyes. Again, I woke up and I saw myself that way. So when I was going through all these things, what saved me was that kind of personality and that kind of outlook in life, because I loved people. I used to say then BYU Hawaii that I was in paradise, but I was living in hell, because really some of the things that I was going through, I thought were gonna kill me physically. How I survived it, I don't know. All I know is that without my belief in God and without the love that I feel that God planted in me, and without the outlook that He has given me to reach out to others, like when I'm going through some of the darkest times, what brought me joy was that I was able to find joy because I was always able to see the suffering of others. So my suffering never blinded me to what was going on around me. I remember so many times I was able to see the struggles of others and see how I could help them because for some reason they were looking up at me to help them. That helped me to deal with my own problems. So many instances, and I can think of them, where if it wasn't for the fact that I was thinking about others and reaching out to help others, I don't think I would have been able to make it. And I was blessed with great friends at BYU. I was blessed with great friends who were not only good examples, but they were brothers in spirit. They were able to encourage me. And not just students, teachers. In fact, I feel that there were teachers that I claim that God specifically put at BYU Hawaii just for my benefit. Because without how they reached out to me with love, as if I was their own child, I don't think I would have made it. It's amazing.
So, two of my very favorite pieces of yours, I feel like there are a lot to choose from because you are so incredible. But my two favorite are The Family and Jubilation. And I think part of why I love those so much is I feel like you're talking about unity, you're talking about relationships. I also think that one theme that goes is weaved throughout your pieces are like womanhood, and it's a celebration of womanhood. Can you speak to that?
I've always felt that the best an artist can be is when that artist allows God to work through him. And I've always felt that the best talent anyone can have is the talent to make connection with divinity. Because I feel that, if there's truly a God, and go with me now, if there's truly a God and he has the power, the scripture say that if a person comes to God, God will show them their weaknesses. And then if the person has faith to trust God and humbles themselves, then God can make those weaknesses strengths. And I reasoned that, hey, so when I can do something because perhaps my talent is not good enough, yet I feel that yearning in my heart to do that. If I acknowledge that I'm weak and let that weakness humble me enough that I go to God and have a better relationship with Him, then God will let the power of Christ, like Paul says, rest upon me, which means that instead of now me using just my talent to work, I'm going to now be using the power of God to work. And if I were to choose between having the greatest talent on earth or having a full connection with God so that I can access his power, I will always choose his power because I know that man's talent is limited, no matter how great it is, but God's is limitless. So I will always choose to have a great relationship with God so that he can work through me. Because I have this outlook, I feel that when I go to the studio to work, it isn't about just what I want to do. It is about what God wants to do through me. Anything I do isn't because I sat down and thought to myself, oh man, I have great feelings about women, so I'm going to do women. It's just as shocking to me. It's just as exciting to me. I'm just as clueless. you know.
We'll be right back with more of our inspiring conversation with sculptor Nnamdi Okonkwo. While we take a brief break, we want to thank our sponsors for making these creative conversations possible.
You know how much I love sharing stories that inspire faith and hope. I'm excited to tell you about my new children's book, Sheep Chronicles Baptism. It's about Joshua, a curious boy with big questions about baptism, and the parable of a lost sheep named Shannon, shared by his wise grandpa. It's been such a joy to write this story, and I can't wait for you and your family to read it together.
And now back to our conversation with Nnamdi.
I went to BYU Provo and my teachers beat me down, and I can come up with reasons why I think I do what I do. But I'll say this in addition, that I have never ever sat down and thought about how wonderful women are. But I have been blessed with so many great women in my life. My sculptures of women are symbolic. I think they are symbolic of everything that is good about humanity. I think I'm using motherhood, which I believe is divine, probably because of the relationship that I have with my mother. I'm using that to portray and express everything that I find beautiful and noble in humanity. So when I have two women dancing and I call it joy or celebration or jubilation, I'm not just talking about women. I'm saying to people, if you're human and you've ever had joy, or if you've ever yearned to have joy with reckless abandon, I'm hoping that you can connect with this piece. I'm hoping you can say, I remember when I felt this way, or I want to feel this way. So that's what I'm doing. When I was at BYU, Hawaii, my first sculptures were of men, Rodin, Michelangelo, those guys were like my idols. I wanted to create works that were as physically expressive as Rodin. And I did it, and I felt like I was good. But when I went to do graduate work at BYU Provo, I wanted to challenge myself. I felt like sculpting realistically or expressively males were very easy. And yet I knew it is an inner spirit, an inner power, an inner glow that is inherent in all humanity that I wanted to express and still want to express. I felt if I can use the figure of a woman that is outwardly not strong to express this feeling of inner strength, for me, that was more challenging. Once I jumped in and did my first female figure, it was just amazing. I just enjoyed the ups and downs of the female figure that I knew. I just couldn't turn back.
So, I guess a couple things. I know your work is in museums throughout the world. Your latest is in China, New York, and Maryland. Where I saw your work was at SUU, the Stillman Sculpture Garden. That's where Jubilant is. And I love it so much. I feel like there is just that connection where you can tell these women are having fun, and I want to join in the party with them. You have expressed that so beautifully. There was a quote you gave that I want to reiterate. You said, I have been particularly interested in the connection between art and its capacity to beautify as well as ennoble and uplift the human soul. From experience, it's very clear to me that art is spiritual, not only in its creation, but also in its appreciation. Therefore, my lifelong quest has been and is to continue to search for the most sublime in my artistic expressions, which is capable of the greatest inspiration to the soul, and which has the capacity, in the words of Picasso, to wash away from the soul the dust of everyday life. I believe in art being more than just for art's sake, or even for the inherent need that art has for personal expression. I feel that art must contribute in tangible ways to the quality of life. There is a higher ideal to which art can remind and compel us. Those are your words, and I feel like they're so impactful and beautiful. What do you want to add to that?
No, for me, it's making sense to me. I remember writing it, but I'm like, did I write? That's too good for something that I could write. Those feelings that I have in my art didn't really start, when I became an artist. They started way before. I wasn't seeing visions. But ever since I was a kid, I would always feel transported to another sphere where everything is perfect. Everything is beyond perfect, where everything is possible, where we can transcend everything, every limitations of this life. And I'll go there and I'll come back. I'll get excited. And I feel like it is possible for me to bring a little bit of what I see in that sphere into this existence, but I didn't know how to do it. When I became an artist, the vision multiplied. I didn't have any talent, but I kept on seeing these visions. The more I progressed in my journey as an artist, the more I felt that those things I was seeing was or were things that are possible that an artist could do. And that's one of the things that are exciting to me. The fact that even as old as I am today, and as much as I've worked, I still feel, in all honesty, that I've not scratched the surface. I haven't even brought down into the sphere of existence some of the things that I have seen with my inner eyes that are possible. I don't feel like I'm the only one that can do that. I do feel that anyone that goes on the journey with all his heart devoted in doing something, and I don't care what field of endeavor that they find themselves in, but if you truly believe that there's a God and that he sent us here to make life better for each other and to create things that suggest that he's alive, that he lives, that there is so much more that meets the eyes than what we see, that God can work through that person. So in scripture, if I tell you my favorite scriptures, there are scriptures that talk about miracles and things like that, because I believe in miracles. The fact that I am an artist, the fact that I'm able to make a living as an artist when everybody told me that it could not be done is a miracle. The fact that I am still cheerful after everything that I've gone through is a miracle. I believe in miracles. And I believe that we can be God's hands to bring those miracles into existence. God bless the teacher at BYU. There was a teacher at BYU Provo that gave us a reading assignment. The reading assignment was a talk given by President Kimball. I think that everybody should be very conversant with that talk. I think it's called, I've seen the talk titled a few different things, but I think there's a longer version called Approaching Zion, and one that is Education for Eternity. I don't want to go into what the talk says, but it's one of the talks that I will go back as a Latter-day Saint and as someone that believes in God, actually, really, and read, and it fires me up and it excites me, and it doesn't really matter what I'm going through. It encourages me to keep on plowing.
Are there any things right now that, regardless of where you are, what you're feeling, can allow you that same kind of encouragement to keep on keeping on?
If I wasn't human, I probably wouldn't need any more encouragement from all the encouragements that I've gotten. But it's not bad. We learn. Sometimes I pray and I'm like, help me not to be one of those people. I feel like I'm learning, but never, ever coming to a knowledge of the truth. I make the same mistakes. I'm tired of making those mistakes. But there's a few things that I feel like I'm learning recently that has helped me. I kind of whittled it down to three things. And I apologize for anyone listening to this that doesn't have a belief in God. I believe in God. I put God in everything. To accept me is to accept the fact that, I'm who I am. I feel like one of the things I've learned that I will go back to is that God is truly a God of miracles. He is a God that fulfills all his promises. So I have to find out what are God's promises. I got to read the scriptures. I got to know my scriptures because that's where those promises are. A few of them he may make to us individually, but the majority of his promises are in the scripture. So he's a God of promises. The second thing that I've learned is that God is also a God of mercy and grace, which means he intends for us to mimic him, to become merciful and gracious to everyone that we meet. There's absolutely no justification to not be merciful and gracious to others. He is merciful and gracious to us. And if we do that, I feel that singular point draws us closer to God and where his power resides much more than anything else. In other words, that's called charity. And the third one is that if we do the hard things for God, he will do the hard things for us. Some people ask me, there's nothing that is hard for God to do. I'm like, yeah, but as puny as our strengths are, we can still stop God from working in our lives. So I feel that if we look at our lives and do an inventory of our life and think, these are the hard things that are keeping me from drawing closer to God. It could be a personal weakness. Anything very difficult. It could be the fact that I don't find forgiving others easy. It could be that I'm angry all the time. It could be that I'm impatient. It could be anything, whatever weakness, and you're trying and you feel like it can be done. If you keep on trying with a mindset that with God's help, you can do it, you can then turn to God. And whatever is almost impossible for you to do, you can ask him and he will do it for you because he knows you're trying to do the hardest things you can do for his sake. When I think of him, it doesn't really matter what I'm going through. I get up and say, there's still hope.
That's magnificent. Thank you so much. I've shared with you my favorite pieces of yours. Do you have pieces that are significant to you or that stand out above others?
The next one I'll do.
I love that answer.
That is true because almost every one of my pieces will have a story behind them. So sometimes because of the circumstances around the birthing of the sculpture, a sculpture becomes important to me. Yeah, because they all have different stories. Even the jubilation that you say is one of yours, one of your favorite, is one of my favorite too. But the reason that is my favorite isn't really because of the reason that it is your favorite. It does help that I see how people are drawn to it, but it is how that piece was conceived, the lesson that I learned during the conception of the piece. Whatever convinces you or brings conviction to your soul that there's a God and he has his hand in every detail of your life, whatever thing we're doing when you gain that conviction becomes special to you. Yeah, so that piece, Jubilation, is just, I learned a great lesson during the time that I was creating it. So I felt it's special. Yeah.
I love that idea that the best is yet to come because I imagine it would be hard, especially as a successful artist, to just be like, okay, I'm done. But then to continue to find that inspiration and to keep not necessarily improving because you're already tremendously talented, but just that you're continuing to allow yourself to evolve. Is that difficult?
Yeah, but I got over that. Over these past 70 years, I was trying to break out of this, what would I call it? I hit the brick and I was in a funk. I started wondering, maybe, that imposter syndrome, maybe I've been a fraud all along. Maybe everything that was happening were just a series of lucky accidents. And in my mind, I attributed it to talent, to God's mercy and grace. Maybe I'm done. But as I worked, and it was agonizing, I just knew that I had to have patience. And where did I get the patience, actually? A few reasons that helped me was the fact that I knew there isn't really anything that I want to do. So I'm stuck. Secondly, I look at the scriptures that are supposed to be our guide. And I look at some of the experiences of some of the people that are my heroes in the scriptures. And I say to myself, perhaps God is taking me through my own wilderness. And I can't just quit along the way because I don't know if right around the bend, there's going to be an oasis. So I couldn't quit, but I just felt like I'm just going to hang in there because, and I think this is important to say, I felt that I would rather die than quit. And why would I have such a feeling? It's because when everyone was telling me that I couldn't be an artist, I felt like it was a perfect opportunity, even though I believed in God, but it was a perfect opportunity for me to use something tangible to prove to myself and hopefully prove to others that there's a God. So I figured if, for all intents and purposes, I shouldn't be able to make it, and then I make it, then I will know. But then I reasoned, okay, if when the going got really tough, there were opportunities to do some shady things, to be dishonest, to do things that one couldn't easily say were inspired of God to get ahead. I knew that if I did any of those and still fail in the end, I could never ever said that I ran a good scientific test because I didn't do my part. And the reason I wanted to succeed didn't really have much to do about me. I so wanted to be an example for others because I felt like if I can do it, then I can look anyone in the eyes and say, hey, look at Nnamdi. I did it and I did it this way. So that means that you can do it too. So when the times got hard this past couple of years, I knew that if I hang in there and succeed, then I will have that much conviction in my voice when I say to people, this is exactly the way you're going to do it. And these are exactly some of the things that may happen. And when they're happening, they're not happening because you're finished. They're happening because they are growing experiences for you. Yeah, so that's it.
Nnamdi, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. Before we close today, is there anything else you'd like to share?
I really love this. I wish we can do it all over again so that I can try to be better than I was.
I think it was really, truly phenomenal. Please look for Nnamdi. You can find his stuff. It is so inspirational and wonderful. You can find it by visiting his website, which is www.nnamdi, that's Nnamdi art.com. He also has a studio in Fayetteville, Georgia. You let people call you to visit? If you're in that area, you can go visit his studio. It's 404-406-5757. Nnamdi, thank you again. This has been so fun.
No, thank you. This has been really my pleasure.
Thanks so much for spending time with me today. If you're looking for a family-friendly, refreshing drink, check out Soda Beers, my family's premium soda company. And for a faith-filled story to share with the little ones, don't miss Sheep Chronicles Baptism, coming this September. Both are available on Amazon. Until next time, keep creating with purpose and faith.